what is Big Bang? Well, Big Bang, I'll tell you what it is. In a nutshell, it's how the universe got started. We can say it's the creation of matter, or worse, it's the creation of nothing, of space. It gets very scary after a while. But where do we start? Well, we start first with the explanation that we've always had from traditional religions, and here it is. You go to the good book. One of them, Christianity, says, "In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth." Okay, and so God waves his magic wand, and he creates the universe, earth and the whole heaven, everything, right? What's the problem with this? Well, as you can see, we don't know where God came from. God was already there. So this movie starts at frame number 2. We don't know what happened in frame number 1. Okay? And you can maybe argue and say, well, there's been no frame number 1. God's always been there, so that frame is eternal. He's always been there. Okay, that's debatable. That's something we have to think about. So, God had no mother. Okay, great. What does the religion of mathematics do? Well, they have the same thing, except that they got rid of God. And so they still have the magic wand, they have the black magic, and it creates this universe, but what they've done is got rid of God, okay? They said, we can do creation, but without God. It turns out that they claim this is not true either. So hold it, what do you mean it's not true? I thought Big Bang was the creation of the universe, of matter. Not quite. You got it wrong. You understood wrong, they say. Okay, and so what does mathematics say? What does the religion of mathematical physics say? Well, they say the following. They say that their movie also starts at frame number 2, just like Christianity. They don't know what happened at frame number 1. And they start at frame number 2, and today we're at frame number X, okay? But they don't have any clue what happened at frame number 1. They don't even attempt to explain what happened at frame number 1. They cannot tell you the mechanism that led to the start of the universe, the creation of matter. They always start at frame number 2. And this notion has been around for maybe 40, 50 years now. They had to revise the theory because originally it was that Big Bang was the creation of the universe, okay? Or that was the insinuation at least. But they got away from that because, a lot of religious people kept saying, oh, you mean there was a frame number 1, and yeah, I know God made that frame, right? Because everything has to have a cause, and God made it. So who created God? Well, God has always been there. So, they got it covered, but science, so-called science, mathematics, they have no answer to that. So they say, no, we start at frame number 2. We never go as far back as frame number 1. Okay, and here you have a testimony on that, okay? The Big Bang Theory is the prevailing cosmological model. This is out of Wiki. The model describes, not explains, right? Describes how the universe expanded from what? From 0? From frame number 1? From frame number 2. An initial state of high density and temperature. We already had density of something, lots of stuff there, compacted together, and lots of temperature. So there was something there. And you say, well, how did that come into being? What came before that? They say, we don't know. The theory only goes as far as that little dot, that little singularity, or whatever they want to call it. The Big Bang starts at density and temperature, not at 0, not at the creation of matter and space. So, one of the issues that people should ask, if you haven't done so already in your mind, is, okay, so what is all this stuff pushing against? Because, okay, we don't know what came before that, before the singularity, before the high density, high temperature thingy that was there, this little ball or whatever. I guess it's a ball, right? We don't know what came in there, but if you have a ball, if you have a something there, what's on the outside of it? Because you cannot conceptualize that little ball, that singularity, that little dot, 3-dimensional dot, I assume. I don't know, maybe it's 0-dimensional. What was on the outside of it? And when it exploded, or, when this thing expanded, or whatever you want to call it, what's it pushing against? What's on the outside? What's the black stuff? Because if the little dot contains space, time, and matter, well, you can't say space is on the outside of that, which is the black stuff there that I had to put in there because I don't know what else to put in there. They have to tell me what's on the outside. What is it, time? Is it thought? Maybe it's thought that's on the outside. I don't know. What's on the outside of that? And they say you're not allowed to ask that question. Oh, okay. Okay, that solves that problem. Yeah, so they don't have an answer to that. And so here's the picture that we have, okay, of the universe. Okay, this is our universe today. This is the way they visualize it. They see our universe according to mathematics, right? Space, time, and matter are all inside the drinking glass there, tilted drinking glass, okay? And apparently 13.8 billion Earth years ago, that's when it all started, the little dot. And again, one asks, well, what's the black stuff that's contouring this drinking glass? And they say, you're not allowed to ask that question. Okay, I won't ask it anymore. I won't ask it anymore. It's unscientific. Okay, it's unscientific. I'll take it back. I'm sorry I offended you. Yeah, you're not allowed to ask that question. It's a no-no question, okay? Okay, give me a second here. Okay, when asked about that, you say, well, then what's on the outside? And one of the answers you get is this finite by unbounded notion. They say, look, the universe is like a 3D ball. It's finite, but it's unbounded because you can run around it forever and you will never find an edge. And this is the most irrational explanation you'll ever find in mathematics, okay? Because they're talking about two different things. The ball is finite, like all balls are finite. Even cubes are finite. And you can run around a cube, a ball, a triangle, or whatever, and you're not talking about unboundedness. You're talking about incessant motion. That's what these people are confusing unbounded with. They use the word unbounded when they should be using the word incessant motion or running incessantly or perpetually or any adverb you want to use in there. Okay, but never can you use the word unbounded. But they say it's finite but unbounded, meaning it's got a perimeter, but it don't. It's both. They cover both bases. Duality, mathematics loves dualities. Well, they use the word unbounded. Wrong. They should be using the word incessant. And they use this all the time. They have all these misconceived words. They talk about warped or bent space-time because the little photon, curves around, they say. Now, if the little photon curves around, it should be called deflected, not bent light, or bent or warped light. That gravity warps light. No. It warps light if light is a banana. Then you can say, or a hammock or something like that. Then you can say it warps the hammock, it warps the banana. You can't say it warps the photon because a photon is a little particle. You can say it deflects it. So they use the wrong words. They use the wrong language and they confuse people because they're introducing words of structure when they're really talking about verbs, about motion. Okay, this is the problem. Serious problem in mathematics. Again, they never get the language straight. And so here are some of the fatal problems with the Big Bang theory, okay? They never answer none of these questions. The cause of Big Bang, what caused it? They say, well, you're not allowed to ask that question because we don't know what came before that. We have no way of proving it. We'll never figure it out, so don't ask that question. It's unscientific. It's philosophy. Okay, I won't ask it. I tried 10 times now. I won't try it anymore. Origin of matter. Again, we have no idea. They say, no, we start at high density. The matter was already there. High density, high temperature, and that's our starting point. Frame number 2 in the film. Okay? And, we don't know how matter was created. Origin of space. That's even worse. Remember, the universe contains space as well, and time. That's inside. That's encapsulated within the so-called universe. And so you ask, what's outside? Can I ask 11th time? What's on outside of it? What's all this pushing up against? Well, you can't say that it's time or that space. Maybe it's against intelligence. I don't know. Give me some words that I can put in there. I don't know what else to put in there. They say you're not allowed to ask that question. But inside the universe, you got space, time, and matter. But listen carefully, because then they talk about parallel universes. Well, what's separating these parallel universes? Why isn't that universe part of ours? And the way they always draw it is with some black stuff. What is the black stuff? Space. But space is supposed to be inside the universe, not outside the universe, because the universe is not pushing up against anything. You figure it out. You'll come to it. Okay? So yeah, space is nothing. So how do you create nothing? The day God created nothing, he had not much. It was a boring day. I create nothing all the time. It's so easy. It's creating something that is difficult. But to create space, no biggie. I create nothing all the time. What is nothing? That which has no shape. That's the definition of scientific definition of space. What is something? The opposite. That which has shape. Okay, we got it. That which has no shape, that which has shape. Okay, and so now we have a solution to the problem that, about whether there was an origin to the universe. Right there you have the clue. Okay, what's outside of Big Bang? We don't know. What's fueling the expansion? Well, they say it's that dark energy. Remember we talked about the other day? That's pushing it outwards. What's trying to pull it back in? Dark matter. So we have gravity pulling it in, dark matter, and I guess energy is anti-gravity, pushing it all out against gravity. I don't know. You figure it out again. And they say the universe is expanding. That's a big problem because universe is a concept, and concepts typically don't expand. I mean, have you ever seen the expansion of love or the contraction of intelligence, like in the case of mathematics? I've never seen a concept contract or expand. Okay, so where did we get all this nonsense? Okay, we got it from fellow priest, Belgian priest. His name was Georges Lemaitre. And in 1927, he wrote a paper. After studying it a little bit, right, he wrote this paper, published it in French, in a French magazine. And so very few people outside of the French world heard about this. And so it wasn't important at the time, okay? And there he gives you an idea that he published later on, about 4 years later, expanding on his original idea. And he said the number of distinct quanta is ever increasing. If we go back in the course of time, we must find fewer and fewer quanta. Everything coming together, the galaxies, everything, the atoms, everything coming together, okay? Until we find all the energy of the universe packed in a few or even in a unique quantum. A little ball, a little quantum, a little singularity. Okay, so those are the two papers he wrote. But in between, 1927 and 1931, there was another fellow, and his name was Hubble, Edwin Hubble. And he wrote a paper in 1929, and this comes out of the Wikipedia. It says, Hubble provided evidence that the recessional velocity of a galaxy increases with its distance from the Earth, a property now known as Hubble's law, despite the fact that it had been both proposed and demonstrated observationally 2 years earlier by Georges Lemaitre. Okay, the Hubble-Lemaitre law implies that the universe is expanding. Okay, so this is where they got all these ideas. And Hubble was never happy with the fact that Lemaitre beat him to it. And so he always protested and argued that Lemaitre really did not figure it out like he did. But, that's a question of opinion. If you look at the paper, I think Lemaitre, came up with the idea. So it should not be called the Lemaitre or Hubble-Lemaitre law. It should be called the Lemaitre law, and that's it, period. We're done. Hubble essentially copied from Lemaitre. That's essentially it. The idea is that for the purposes of physics, we don't care about the number. If it's going twice as fast or half as much, we don't care about that. We care about the notion, the explanation. The explanation Lemaitre offered is that the universe is expanding. It's sometime in the past. There was a singularity, okay, a quantum as he called it, and from there it all started. So he started from this little nugget, this little seed that somehow exploded into the universe that it's today. Okay, and Pius XII, who was the Pope at the time, he picked up on that real quick. Okay, not so quick because it was a few years after, some 20 years after, and he said, what you've proven is the existence of God. He says because you can't have a universe existing without a cause. The cause is God. And so Pius XII, he had a conference, and he talked about that, and these were the 3 points that he made. He says, Big Bang universal expansion confirms the existence of God. Okay? It proves the origin of the universe, and you can't do it without God. And Lemaitre responded, tried to convince him, says, look, the origin of the universe is a philosophical problem, subjective, not a scientific one, objective. Okay? So he kind of hinted, he said, you can laugh at the mathematicians and say, look, we've always told you that God was there. You didn't want to believe it because all you people are atheists. But it turns out that, we've all concluded now that the universe had an origin sometime in the past. And who created that nugget if not God? Who set the whole thing in motion? What was the cause? There you have it. God himself, God Almighty. Okay? And so we have other people today, not Catholics, but this fellow, his name is William Lane Craig. And he came up with a cosmological argument, which he defends and will defend until his death. And he has the same argument as Pope Pius XII. He just picked up on that. He says, whatever begins to exist has a cause of its existence. The universe began to exist. Therefore, the universe has a cause. And the best explanation for the cause of the universe is God. And so we have God in there, and the theologians are laughing at the mathematicians because they say, see, we told you that there's always a God. All you atheists who don't believe in God, you're telling me there's a seed. Who created the seed? Well, who else but God? The all-powerful, the intellect, the intelligence out there that created all that. And so, yeah, the mathematicians say, well, you're wrong. See, we can't tell you what happened in frame number one. We can only tell you what happened. We can only go as far back as frame number two. Okay, and so we start there, and don't get involved. Don't bring your God into our discipline. We promise not to take God into your religion. Okay, so that's where we stand today. Okay, one guy says God made it all, made the seed that from where everything expanded, which the mathematicians agree with, but the mathematicians say we stop at frame number two. We don't go to frame number one because we have no idea what happened to frame number one. That's the story we have today. There's another issue with that, and that's here, the flatness issue, okay? And the way they explain the expansion of the universe, as you can see there, you can see they show this flat universe, and it's expanding. And so they try to explain with this how the galaxies originally were closer together, and with the expansion of space, what happens is space is separating the galaxies apart. Okay, and you say, well, why doesn't it also, I mean, there's space within a galaxy. You would think that the galaxy is also bloating like a smoking toad, you know, and they say no, because gravity pulls it together, maybe electromagnetism, you know, magnetism for sure, is pulling all matter together while space is trying to expand. So what really happens is you have space pushing galaxies apart, and that's why they say is the universe is expanding, meaning all the galaxies are receding from the Earth, at least, you know, at least that's the way we see it from here, from our vantage point. And they're saying, yeah, galaxies are flying apart because the universe is still exploding from the Big Bang. And the problem here is that they show it as a flat surface. You say, why do they put it as a flat surface? Where did they get that idea? Well, so to put it into proper context for you so that you know where they got this, okay? And this is where they got it, okay? This is what they should be really illustrating. They should show a globe, here shown in 2 dimensions, right? Where you can see the galaxies were very close together. Somehow these galaxies were one on top of the other a long time ago. And as space expanded, right, it took the galaxies with them and separated one from the other. So the reason we are far away from all these galaxies is that space is expanding. But then you should see it as a globe. And what's the issue? The issue is when they talk about flatness, they say, well, imagine you're on a globe. Well, if the globe has a very small radius, then you can see great curvature. But if it has a great radius, you know, if the globe gets bigger and bigger and bigger, the surface on which you are on, you know, observer again, see, touch, well, the surface on which you are standing is approaching flatness. Okay, so they're saying that it's, for all practical purposes, it's flat. Well, you know, if it's a sphere, if the universe is a sphere that's expanding, I don't care how big you want to make that surface, it's always going to be curved. But again, what's the issue? The issue is language. They talk about flatness when the real issue is language. This is not flatness. A curve will never be flat. And they say, well, it approaches flat. Where do they get these notions? Well, from a mathematical notion, which is, you know, x approaches 0. So they use this notion from mathematics, and they say, oh, we'll extrapolate it to physics. If the radius increases and the globe becomes bigger and bigger and bigger, the person standing on there will see ever more flatness. The highway will be flat, flatter, 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 and flatter, the bigger the ball gets. And so they say, well, for all practical purposes, it's flat. But from God's point of view out there, Mother Nature, Father Universe, whoever you believe in, they still see a globe from far away. It's still a curve. It's not flat. Okay, so keep all this in mind. Okay, so here's the balloon analogy I talked about the other day. Okay, you have the balloon, there's a Big Bang expanding, exploding, and what's pushing it outwards is the energy known as dark energy, and what's pulling it inwards are all those galaxies known as dark matter. It's dark matter that's around each one of those galaxies, and dark matter allegedly is the gravitational force that pulls everything together. What's pushing it out is dark energy. They don't know what dark matter is. They don't know what dark energy is, because these are all numbers. And what are they really? Well, they say we don't know what it is when they actually tell you what it is. They say it's particles, very heavy, and they are dark. That's why they're called dark. Dark energy, dark matter. They're particles. That's all that mathematics ever proposed. And like I like to say, you know, it's not even dark. It's transparent, translucent. You can see right through the dark matter halo that allegedly surrounds a galaxy. You can see the stars and galaxies in the background right through the halo. So it should not be called dark. It should be called translucent, transparent, invisible. Any of those words will be fine. Okay, so what's the story? Well, some people say the universe is not expanding. We're talking about astronomers, okay? Famous case was this gentleman, his name was Halton Arp. He died a few years ago. And he had a different idea of what the redshift is, because the way they prove all these things, they look at the galaxies and they say, well, we're looking at this Doppler effect. The Doppler effect, for those of you who are not familiar with it, is, when the train comes towards you, you hear, and when it passes, you go, sound goes down. Well, they say the same thing is for light. When the light approaches you, it's blue shifted, and when it recedes, when it goes away from you, it's red shifted. So when they point their telescopes and their spectrometers and all these equipment that they have in the labs, they say, we see the world is all redshifted. The universe is all redshifted, pretty much. Okay, so we have all these galaxies that look like they're redshifted, looks like they're running away from us, meaning the universe is expanding. That confirms the Big Bang, means everything was closer together a long time ago, and we arrive at frame number 2 of the film. Okay, that's the notion. Okay, and so this fellow, Halton Arp, he was an astronomer. He was kicked out of the United States essentially because they wouldn't give him any time on the telescope, so he had to go to Germany, came here to Germany, and he worked here for many years until his death. And he wrote till the end of his days on a different type of redshift, a different interpretation for the redshift. Okay, and he said, look, these guys are wrong. It's not that galaxies are receding and that the universe is exploding, and that any of that confirms that there was a singularity in frame number 2 of the film, universal film. He says the redshift is not due to the Hubble expansion or physical movement of the objects. Okay, keep that in mind. Has a non-cosmological or intrinsic origin. He called it intrinsic redshift. Okay. Quasars, what are they? Because that's where they got some of these ideas. They're local objects ejected from the core of active galactic nuclei. Okay. Cosmological objects are physically arranged in a quantized pattern around the Earth. Or there is an unknown mechanism for redshift unrelated for cosmic expansion. Yes, it's known as the rope hypothesis. That's the unknown mechanism that they haven't discovered yet. Okay, there you see the rope. And what am I talking about? Well, I'm talking about this. This is the mechanism that we propose for what Mr. Halton Arp and others, by the way, are still investigating this, propose. And here it is. It's known as tired light. Okay, and what is tired light? Well, they said that essentially you cannot prove or you cannot explain in any way redshift by saying that light coming towards us is losing energy somehow. The only way the mathematicians ever came up with that is if light hits something. If it strikes something, then that something will slow light down. And so that's how, when it loses energy, as they call it, right? Then at that point you can say, okay, now it's red. It's going into the red zone from blue to red because it's now approaching us, and it's approaching us, hitting something, losing energy in the process. Okay. So the only way they can imagine this tired light mechanism, which they disagree with, they say is light can only come towards us redshifted and lose energy only if it hits something. And with a rope model, we say, no, that's not the case. We can have a static universe, totally static universe, and as a rope recedes from, or the farther away it is from its origin, from the atom that to which the rope is connected, the longer the links are going to be in the center. That's essentially the argument. The longer the links, the lower the energy, meaning you're going to have a redshifted effect when that happens. So we do not have to have a receding galaxy to explain the mechanism of tired light. We don't have to have light strike anything at all. All we have to have is a rope, famous rope here. And I'm saying that if you have 2 atoms, as you go from one atom to the next, the ropes in the center should get longer. Okay, that's all we're saying. So we have a mechanism to explain redshift without having anything recede from another. The other issue you should keep in mind is that the Andromeda galaxy is blue shifted. So are other galaxies of what is known as the local group, which are about 50 some galaxies out there. And I think all of them, or at least most of them, are blue shifted. And you say, hold it, if the universe is expanding, meaning space, separating these galaxies one from the other, why are the ones in the local groups blue shifted? If everything goes according to plan, the Andromeda galaxy should hit us in 2.2 million years, because apparently it's 2.2 million light years away, meaning that if it travels at the speed of light, it should reach us in 2.2 million years. And so it's coming towards us. And why is that the case if the universe is expanding, blowing everything apart? And they say it's gravity, or maybe even magnetism, bringing everything together locally. That's the answer they give you. Even though they're so far away, they say, well, yes, it's gravity that's pulling us together. They have no evidence of that. That's the argument. That's the ad hoc argument to counteract anyone who wants to say, well, is the universe expanding? Well, yeah, it is expanding, but the local group is coming together because of gravity or magnetism, who knows what. Maybe God or the angels are putting it together. Okay, so what's the problem also with this notion that the universe is expanding? Well, it has to do with the word universe. Universe is a concept. Universe stands for the word space and matter. That's what universe means. Space is that which has no shape. Okay, and you cannot morph space into a thing, and you cannot morph a thing into space. You cannot have space acquire suddenly length, width, and height and become a thing. You cannot have a thing lose length, width, and height and become space. Therefore, the universe is eternal. Okay, nothing, not even God, can leave space, because space does not have a boundary, a fence in which to cross, because space is that which has no shape. It has no surface. Therefore, there is no wall that you can cross to the other side, whatever that can mean, when something has no shape. So not even God can escape our universe, okay, if he's in here somewhere. And that means the universe is eternal, meaning matter is eternal. Matter cannot turn into space. Space cannot turn into matter. Therefore, the universe is eternal. Okay, in both directions of time, if we're going to talk about time. Okay, the universe had no meaning. Matter had no origin, and matter will have no end. It has nowhere to go, and it cannot turn into space. Therefore, matter has always been there, whether you like it or not. Okay. Okay, let's move on to some of the questions people asked since last time. Oh, just a couple more. These are like the corollary, okay, for you to take home with you, okay? Here we have God before he created space, before he created nothing, okay? That's God before he created nothing. That's what he looked like. And then one day he decided to create space, okay? And that's what he looked like, because now he had something to give him contour. He had no more shame. He had something to cover his shame with, which is known as space. What is space? Space is that which has no shape. Space serves as backdrop to all matter. Okay? Anything that's matter, anything that has shape, ultimately it has space as the backdrop. Okay, we got that? Matter had no origin, neither did space. Universe, quotations, concept, has always been there. Matter has always been there.